I'm very excited to have Alberta Advantage here. We have Sean, we have Tyler. Tyler does not have audio, so Sean's translating for him. And Alberta Advantage is so exciting to so many of us because they've done an incredible job building community and really demonstrating all of the things that we've really heard over the last day and a half about what we need to do to build a stronger left and movement. I think one of the things that I've really appreciated is I'm on their Patreon and I highly recommend it. The Alberta Advantage Patreon includes perks such as the Discord server, which is maybe the best use of the software I've seen. You can go and watch movies with the team. You can go and do D&D with the team. That's partly where they get some of their incredible newsletter. Shout out to the Alberta Advantage newsletter as the best literary product in Canada. That is absolutely phenomenal.
Clinton will be happy that you said that.
Okay, good.
And and you're right. It's amazing. He's a great newsletter editor.
Yeah. So I don't want to take up any more of their time. We'll cut to them and what their idea is to save the world.
All right. So thank you so much, Matthew. So I do want to just make clear right off the gate that we do not purport to be the sole members of the Alberta Advantage. We are just a couple.
That's news to me.
we are ambassadors that were sent to communicate the Alberta Advantage philosophy to you here at Twitch. So glad to see everyone. So I want to kind of start out by talking about how we actually sort of approach this at first. So we talked to Matthew, and he said that he wanted sort of a couple things. Oh, and sorry, if you hear some banging, I should make it clear.
We're under fire.
It's okay. It's definitely not the federal government trying to invade our compound. It is roofers working on the roof. So don't worry about it. So we thought about this. Matthew wanted something that was actionable, something that like we could get people on Reddit to do, something that could be like fun and gamified and be like a campaign. But also something that would have some real effect or change in society because, we kind of need a win. I don't want to be a pessimist to say this, but we've had a lot of losses lately. I mean, we just had a pretty big loss yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We were thinking about that. Like, why do we keep losing? Why does the left keep losing? And why do all these campaigns that we seem to start seem to never really bear fruit or be successful? I mean, like even a lot of large popular protest movements like ultimately never end up actually bearing some sort of material result in the world or manage to shift any sort of policy or get really much done. And even campaigns such as the one that we did with the Greens, that can often fail precisely because of what we realize that there's just not enough of us.
Yeah, and not only not enough of us, but I think the people on the left, generally speaking, I think we have a habit to be quite insular and to talk a lot amongst ourselves, and those conversations are always great. But we have a hard time, again, generally speaking, getting out into the communities and actually working with the population at large who are not automatically sympathetic to us, right? So we're not talking about the people you would meet at a march for a teachers union. Those people would be, broadly sympathetic to us already.
Or the people you would meet on like a, let's say, just as a random example, a Reddit account or a Reddit or a subreddit that's devoted to the Canadian left, like
or Twitter,
or or at a Marxist reading group or something, which is honestly where a lot of us met each other.
Yeah.
And those spaces are great, and those like intra-left community spaces are really important because it allows us to talk and strategize and communicate and theorize and learn. And I mean, the other prong of this too is leftist media and counteracting right-wing media. But to a degree, and Kiefer with the last presentation talked about this as well, and we want to really focus in on this, is that I think the third arm of this is sort of leftists becoming a part of their communities more generally, or sort of almost like reintegrating themselves with a larger society. Because I think that we have a bit of a tendency to be insular and to keep to ourselves a little bit. And this is for a number of reasons, often very legitimate. To be pretty personal, like I am someone who has like quite a few issues with anxiety and talking to other people. I stress out a lot talking to other people. I make it out to be a way bigger problem than it is. I'm sure this is something that a lot of people sympathize with and also deal with. And I think that that is actually being a part of, and that plus some, neuroatypical other problems that I have is a part of what actually pushed me towards the left, because experiencing the world and experiencing society as an outsider has actually allowed me to sort of see society as being unjust or unfair, and is a pretty big wake-up call. But the kind of unfortunate side effect of that is that a lot of the people that are on the left are very alienated and are very sort of have a tendency to stay with themselves and stay within groups where they're able to be a bit more supported and a bit more and you're just sort of the weird awkwardness of talking to someone you don't know and who you have no relationship with.
Yeah, and it's not just obviously as the shots ring out here. It's not just somebody, or it's not just a problem rather for people on the left. This is also just a broad societal issue, given the history of the last, I don't care what you want to say, we'll say 40 years to be broad, of continually isolating people and making everyone's issues, either personal work or otherwise, individualized. I think we're all very much aware of that. And one of the strengths of the left, or one of the things that certainly has attracted me to the left, is that it's a tendency to try and be a community and to look out for each other. And this doesn't just mean in the purely political sense of, winning power, all these things that we want to do, but it also just means hey, I'm struggling with something. Could be something as little as, hey, I'm out of flour. I need to talk to my neighbor to get some damn flour to make some bread. The classic flour problem. These are things that have really fallen by the wayside, and I think in not to be in a conservative sense harkening back to previous times, but I think that is something that has been lost on a societal level that also negatively impacts our chances politically, and that's kind of what we want to talk about.
Yeah, so basically what we are arguing for here is a sort of broad, sorry, the banging's getting quite bad. I think they're switching to some sort of orbital bombardment.
I could if you want.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
No, I think
I think we're okay. We don't have any complaints in the chat, so don't stress. This
okay, can you still hear us talk?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, perfect. And that's fine.
Thing is you're comfortable there.
It's really just impacting us, maybe.
Okay.
The only comments here, it sounds like the roofers are doing a coup. Show the roofers the chat so we can unionize them. Other than that, we're happy.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah. Well, you'll be happy to know the roofer's actually my landlord, so I don't think that I'm going to have much of a chance doing that. So I don't actually have a lot of leverage here, folks. So this is sort of a forced situation, just so you know.
Solidarity.
Which is even why it's even more important that we need to do something about this. So basically what we're proposing is that leftists, now that we are all radicalized and we are all able to see the problems with society and the problems with capitalism, and we want to fix it, because we agree with all of the other ideas that were brought up here. Like, we also want free public transit. We also want to defund the police. But we actually need more people power to actually make that happen. So I think that one of the most important steps to do this, again, alongside with leftist media and these sort of intra-left communities, is us actually investing our time and our attention back into the world around us, essentially. So I mean our neighborhoods, I mean our workplaces, I mean even things like our churches, our community organizations, clubs, things like that. Just entering communities and sort of making real relationships.
Any spaces where you're interacting with people that you don't already assume have the same politics as you.
Yeah, people who you are interacting with not necessarily by choice, but by general association. You don't choose your neighbors. Well, you do, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You don't choose the people you work with. These are just people that you have to deal with and connect with, and that has its weaknesses, of course, because the people you work with and the people you live around can be extremely hostile, unfortunately. But it also has its benefits, and that's the power of unions. Is that being able to connect a bunch of different people from different backgrounds, because they are all forced to be together and have the same struggle, is actually a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
So there's a few different benefits we think for, and something I actually want to make clear too is we're not advocating for any specific like goal here beyond building these relationships for now, because we think that so what we want right now isn't even organizing. I think organizing is the next step. We want the pre-organizing step of building relationships, because and this is the big kicker, and this is the biggest thing, because not only is building relationships with other people like praxis, because socialists should care about other people, and not only is it like good for us because it's good to learn how to talk to other people and engage with other people, but most crucially, to actually organize, you need to have relationships that you can draw upon and leverage. I mean, I know this sounds weird, and I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive, but like you need to be able to have relationships that you can use.
Yeah.
You need to be able to use other people. Yeah. And I know that sounds bad, and I know that sounds like very manipulative or sort of utilitarian of me, but like that is like kind of what being a comrade is to someone else. It's being able to be in a relationship with someone where you allow yourself to be used by another person. Yeah. And that sounds weird. But
and
like,
it's about you should be able to expect something from friends, neighbors, family, and they should also expect things of you. Because, so it's not a one-way relationship, obviously.
That's what's important about it, is that liberals will like freak out about this. But like liberals just want to use people and not have the relationship. They just want your vote. They just want like your blind loyalty. They don't actually want it to be a two-way relationship. They don't want you to expect anything from them. They just want to expect things from you. We want to build relationships with people where there's that mutual respect and that mutual expectation, so that when you, like, let's say, want to organize a tenants strike, if you actually know all the people in your apartment building and they like you, then asking them to go out on a limb and do something risky, like go on a rent strike, might actually work, because they like you and they respect you. Well, and I think they have that relationship.
It's easy to think of this in kind of an example where if we just take a tenant organizing or rent strike or something like that. If you were, committed leftist, you've been reading all your great Verso books, and you've been going to your reading group, and you've been on Twitter, and you know exactly what they should look like.
Which we do,
of course. And then you start one day, not really knowing any of your neighbors, knocking on doors and asking them to sign up for that. I can guarantee that will probably be very unsuccessful. What we're advocating for here is, obviously, in the time of COVID, we're not saying, hey, have a mixer at your house and invite your whole floor over.
Go cough on your neighbors.
Yeah. Don't be unsafe about this, especially now. But what we mean is like, hey, you're passing someone in the hall, instead of doing like white guy smile and just walking by them, how about actually say, hey, how's it going? Sorry, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Tyler. I live in 102.
Give your postal code as well.
Yeah, give your postal code. Give the 3 numbers on the back of your credit card.
That's important. I was trying to get you to look
shit. Okay.
Info.
So yeah, like actually make those little efforts to start this very simple thing of getting to know people.
Yeah.
Then from there you can start building up to things like, let's say you have an elderly neighbor. Right now, obviously, it's a hard time for elderly people. I think most of us have examples of that in our own life. If you run into them, ask them, hey, I'm going to the store. I love going to the store. What can I get you at the store? I love going to the store. We love going to the store here at Alberta Advantage. Yeah. Do you need some flour that we talked about already to make that beautiful bread you make? But, it could be anything. It could be, hey, you've got a neighbor with a dog. We've also got a cat here. Maybe you're going to the pet store. Can I pick you up something? Or, hey, we're going for a walk. Introduce yourself. Go for a walk together. Really simple steps that can build up trust. That can make you not just a face in the crowd, but someone that these people see as part of their community. And once you build that trust, it's much easier, like we said, to then ask things of people later on.
And we also want to make clear, we're not coming at this from like position of like, we've already done this and we're pros. This is something that we also need to do. This is something that we've thought about and really like critically thought about in our own lives and realized that we're really lacking in. I mean, I actually came up with this idea after reading an article. It was about Shara Schulman, and there was a part in it where a woman was talking about how Shara Schulman, she's this like a queer organizer, showed up to their like group. It was their like anti-gentrification like organizing group, and this is the quote from the article. Schulman wanted to start by hearing about them. She was curious about their lives and their work. She asked questions. She listened, and she asked more. Did they know their neighbors? Povitz remembers Schulman asking. Did they help with their neighbors' kids? Did they know the local churches? Did they know what work the churches were already doing? And we were just like, no, 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 we don't. Oh my God, we don't. So I don't either. Like I since reading that have like tried being like more friendly with my neighbors and trying to be more connecting with my neighbors. But like I have a lot of work to do because like I said, I am someone who is pretty anxious and like really doesn't like talking to others, and I have to kind of force myself to do it. But I found that like it's actually been quite worthwhile, and that despite it being difficult, that with a bit of practice, I've been able to force through and do it. And of course, we're not trying to be universalists here. Like you might have like a severe anxiety or mental health problem that might stop you from being able to do this. We're not asking you to force anything. You might live in a neighborhood, like a suburban Calgarian neighborhood, where you're just surrounded by
you have
white
two
collar,
neighbors in a
oil
1 kilometer.
shipments. Yeah, and it's just like that's impossible. But like, what we're saying is that you should try to seek some area of your life where you feel like you've checked out, and try to check back in.
Yeah.
Like whether that's your workplace, your neighborhood, like some old friends of yours, your family, even. Yeah. Like just like be a bit more engaged and more caring about other people.
And I think it's important to say too, you know, some of this can be done online. Like a lot of complexes, buildings do have like Facebook groups maybe where I would say the discourse will tend to be quite reactionary a lot of times. I think anyone who's been on Nextdoor can understand what that's like. So that is an okay place to, you know, introduce yourself, make some small chat. But I think that the in-person connection is a really important part of this. And to Sean's point, that's not going to work for everyone. That's fine. But if you can do it, that's important. And another thing I think we want to add here too, as someone who is lucky enough not to deal with any mental health issues, I still find this really hard. And I'm a quite social, quite outgoing person. I still find it hard to talk to my neighbors and strangers. I generally am just putting my head down, throwing myself in the garbage, and giving people the GameStop smile. That's pretty much how I do it. But what I think is good to realize is this is a skill, like many other skills in your life, that you can actually get better at by practicing it. So it might be as easy as the first time you just say, okay, over the next month, when I walk by a neighbor and there's an opportunity that, you know, you don't want to be at the end of the hallway like yelling at them, but like when you walk by each other, just say like, hey, how's it going? You don't even have to introduce yourself. Start small, start building it up, make sure that they know.
You're getting to the quests.
Yes.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So one last thing I want to say is that, so the thing is that, so we then thought like, how do we actually encourage people to do this in a way that like tries to like be like, leverage the sort of already existing sort of infrastructure that we have, and sort of like fights back against like how difficult it is to actually have the energy to connect with others.
I think we've just lost the audio there, if you can hear me. I'm still getting like an audio feedback. I'm just not hearing. Oh, here we go. Yeah, it's back.
There, is that better?
We're back. Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you so much.
I just think the roofers dislodged something. But yeah, so we were thinking, how do we fight back against how difficult this all is? Because you know, we live in an extremely alienated society. We all can just like let ourselves just like drift further and further apart, just staying at home, using skip the dishes, using self-checkout lines at the grocery store, you know, playing World of Warcraft Modern instead of World of Warcraft Classic, and just like letting ourselves just like fragment. So we decided to take Matthew's suggestion to gamify things. And maybe this is just my stupid sense of humor, but I came up with this idea called Normal Quest. And we can change the name of it. It doesn't have to be Normal Quest.
I like Normal Quest.
But some people seem to like Normal Quest. And essentially the point of Normal Quest would be to essentially have like a series of tasks or goals that people can try to accomplish in different areas of their lives, like let's say their workplace, their neighborhood, and like organizations like churches or other things that are just sort of like small progressive tasks that you can do to sort of like build up your confidence and become more social. And so some of the basic things would be take a walk around your neighborhood without wearing headphones and say hi to people. Introduce yourself to one neighbor. Some next level ones might be hang out with a coworker outside of work. Things like that.
Yeah. Or even just at work, try, like this is an interesting one with work too, because in a workplace, it becomes very hard, I think, to get respect and admiration of colleagues to do any kind of organizing if you're not actively trying to be good at your job. And I know that seems like counterintuitive to the way a lot of leftists think.
I think good at their job couched in to your other coworkers.
Yeah. Like, you want to be reliable. You want to
be like the person who like covers other people's shifts.
Yeah.
And doesn't have any slack to like pick up on and like watches out for your coworkers' backs.
So maybe it might be something where, in the next month, if you don't have a particularly busy schedule, if a coworker of yours has a shift they need covered and you are okay to do it, try and pick one up.
And then like use it as like a way to like try to like become a little bit closer.
Strike up a conversation,
and like try to like build that relationship. Yeah. So our idea essentially is that if we win, and maybe if we don't win also, if we have time, we want to develop essentially like a like series of these quests that people can do like in different areas of their lives to rebuild their sense of community.
And not only that, I think what will be important about this is using spaces that exist like Reddit, maybe the Discords or Slacks for various podcasts that people may have joined, or other organizing spaces like that, where you can have a channel or a topic or a keyword dedicated to that, where people can say like, hey, normal quest, I leveled up today, I talked to all my neighbors or whatever.
And just share your experiences, because like I found that like I end up having like, when I have like really positive experiences with strangers, it's such a nice feeling. Like I've gone to know my next door neighbor, and she has this little dog that is becoming friends with Max here, and seeing them like play around is like very fun, and that's like also being like a good way to sort of like connect with this person and like become better friends, and like being able to talk about our successes, talk about these new relationships that we're building.
Another point that I want to make that we didn't touch on yet, which I think is really important, because this might seem, I think, at the outset like quite a minor thing, and maybe it doesn't seem to tie directly into some of the organizing. We gave some examples earlier. But another thing to keep in mind is that what the right wing has been very successful at doing is painting all leftists as kind of like totally obsessed with themselves, hating normal culture, hating normal people, and there are sometimes aspects of that which are true, but I think broadly speaking that is a very unfair characterization. And what we want to do is kind of be able to, before politics even gets brought in, prove to our communities, our neighbors, the society that we live in, that we are just active, normal parts of that society, and not be scary. Basically.
So like
not be Antifa.
If your neighbor like Martha like thinks that you're like thinks of like socialists, or hears socialists on the news and thinks like, oh, the socialist I know is like this nice neighbor who has a cute little
walked
dog
my dog
and,
when I was sick.
And like checks up on me, then like that's going to like change their opinion, and they'll be more willing to like take those ideas seriously. It sucks, and I know it shouldn't work like that, but unfortunately that's how a lot of people
That's
think.
how society works, right?
It's just simple. Like you make like you get impressions on ideas based on the people that represent those ideas.
You can't change people's minds if they don't like you, right? First, the personal is political in an important way here, where if people have good experiences with people, and then later on come to find out their politics, even if it doesn't necessarily align with theirs, they'll be way more sympathetic. And I can think of a lot of cases in my own life where my more successful political conversations have come from, not being incredibly direct and condescending, but relationships I've built up over a long time, where I kind of gently introduce the politics, and because they already have the relationship, even if they might not disagree at first or might not agree at first, they're much more willing to hear me out and realize that I'm not some sort of, psycho who's trying to like steal their house or something.
It gets them to like listen. Because, like, honestly, the only way that anyone will ever listen to you, this sucks to say this, but, like, this is a time where people, like, are very divisive. We all live in our own, like, realities. And the only way you can get someone to listen to you is if they trust you.
Yeah.
And that's true of whether you're trying to convince someone of something like ideologically, or if you're just trying to get them to do something like go on strike or like sign a petition or do some sort of direct action.
Yeah.
Like you need to have people trust you, and that's such a big part of building up strength in unions and union organizing.
And one thing
it's important here with us,
like liberals and conservatives have essentially won the battle in the sense of they are always seen as the reasonable ones, and people on the left, even just left liberals, frankly, are seen as these kind of radical outsiders. Now, our politics may be radical, but what's important here is that we are saying the way we present our politics in our interpersonal relationships is not something radical.
Yes, and I do want to be clear. I'm not encouraging anyone to lie about their politics. I
No.
want you to always be honest about your politics. I just don't want you to like go up to people and have it be the first conversation you have.
Yeah.
But if someone ever asks you like that, you're like your neighbor talks to you, like, oh, did you hear about like the, I don't know, like survey to like change like the scooter laws or whatever? Like, I don't know. You can tell them like, I think that these scooters are kind of damaging because they're like privately owned, and they're like these sort of like vampire companies that like rely off like contract labor that's really exploitative.
Yeah.
And like you don't have to lie about these things. Like you can be honest, and like that's the great thing about it, is that like if you are just like a person who's friendly and presents your opinions in a nice, friendly way, you're going to win more people over than you'd expect.
And a lot of the ideas, when presented in a friendly manner, not in like a political debate, they do come across as reasonable, right? And that's, it's quite easy when you're...
Our politics are the most reasonable
they're
ones.
very reasonable.
That's the best part about being socialist.
That's why we like them.
Yeah.
So when you're having those conversations too, one way I always try to frame things is, instead of right away being negative about maybe whatever the topic is, try and present what your positive vision of that thing would be, right? So maybe it's like, hey, you know what? I enjoy those scooters. They're super fun to use, but I wish that the companies acted in this way or had more.
They should just be like owned by whatever.
So you can spin that in a way, and I think a lot of people you'll find will just be nodding their heads, being like,
I can tell my reactionary
good.
grandma like something should be owned by the government, and she's like, yeah, you're right. So like it's not. It feels scary, and it kind of is scary.
Yeah.
But like it's something that I think is necessary, and that we should all sort of like encourage each other and be supportive of each other to do. So that's why our idea is this normal quest, this grand campaign that people across the left try to engage with their communities, and basically just like make friends with normal people, so that we can then leverage those relationships when we need to organize. Like, think about how many more people you could have brought into the Green Party if you had like, I don't know, like if each of us had like 5 more people we could have brought in, it would have annihilated them.
Dimitri would have won easily.
If each of us had 1 more person that we brought in, we would have won.
Yeah.
Think about that. If each of us could have just got 1 more person, we would have won. That's it.
And think about too, like let's just say you're on a floor with 20 units in a condo building, and you've built up, at least a reasonable relationship with half of those, and you're really passionate about this, and all you did was like print out some communication literature, maybe type a quick note out, attach it to that, and slid it under their doorstep. Thanks, Tyler. Give this a think, or give this a read. How much more impactful that would be when they see who it's from and the relationship that you might have built, compared to you just doing it randomly, like you're door knocking for a political campaign.
Yeah. And so that's basically that's our pitch, that's our idea. So if we want to go to questions, go for it.
And I can't hear, by the way.
Yes. So I'm going to relay questions to Tyler like I'm a translator.
I just want to say that was absolutely beautiful. Normal Quest is truly inspiring, having it explained in such a fashion. Just to quickly kind of help validate too, I think one of the common threads we've seen everywhere is we just need to do a better job of connecting with our neighbors. And how can we ask them to do normal things if we don't treat them like normal people? So I think it's super inspiring, and I love it. I guess, so one of the first questions, I guess, is in our current time of COVID, how should we go about doing this thing? Where maybe we're wearing masks, maybe we can't flash our GameStop smile. What can we do?
Not in favor.
Yeah, so that does suck. And so this, I think, is more of course, like, I think should be a long-term like mindset that we should all really be getting into, like, connect more with our communities. But in terms of like doing something now, it is hard because of COVID. The sort of not plus side, but the part of COVID that like makes this a bit easier is that I think people kind of, I think, are understanding the values of community relationships a bit more and are maybe going to be a bit more willing and friendly to people like kind of being awkward and saying, hi, I'm your neighbor. I just wanted to kind of like get to know you, and like would maybe be a bit more understanding.
People need more help now too. Like again, I spoke about
So a
elderly
lot of vulnerable
communities,
people
but
out there.
there's a lot of vulnerable communities that probably need more help than normal. And the other way that I would think about this too is we brought it before. A lot of condo buildings, apartment complexes have online communities already.
Yeah,
Facebook
like Facebook
groups.
message groups, or like
maybe join those
or start one.
Yeah, or start
If
one
there isn't
if one doesn't exist. That's a great idea. And then all you have to do as a start is just say like, hey everyone, I'm Tyler. I'm in Unit 101. I'm sorry I haven't introduced myself to now, but I thought this would be a great time to introduce myself. Here's my name. Here's what I like. Here's my hobby or something. Please say hi the next time you see me walking around.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our like level 1 quests will be things that can be done during COVID. Things like if you live in an apartment building, like talking to people in the elevator or talking to people in the lobby and stuff.
French
like
kiss all your neighbors.
Yeah. Things like just like if you live in like a house in like a suburban type neighborhood, like if you just see your neighbor like outside in their yard, just like wave to them. Or things like after it snows, we are going to add seasonal events like shovel your snow.
Shovel your neighbor's snow if you're out there, right? Especially, or look for people in your community who may have a hard time shoveling, people who have a lot of kids, elderly people, people who physically would have a hard time doing it. Seek those people out and just do it.
I know this sounds so lame and straightforward, but like this really is something that like I think as socialists we should really like remember.
Yeah.
I don't know about all you. I don't know about you, Tyler and Max. Max is sleeping.
Yeah. Max has never shoveled my sidewalk.
No, but I'm a socialist because I think it's the most caring and most like just political ideology. It's one that actually takes seriously that everyone should have human rights and be treated well and should have a humane and respectful and dignified life. That is not only just humane, respectful, and dignified, but is happy and pleasurable and fulfilling. So, and that I think for me stems from like caring about other people. But sometimes the misery of existence, I would say, grinds away at that, and it can be really easy to lose sight of that and just turn it into just like an owning the libs and fascists thing. Yeah. And I think it's important for us to reconnect to the actual like this is a politics of caring and community, because that is how we build, I think, a real movement that can counter this sort of like grand evil that we are facing.
Posting, hot takes on Twitter is never going to bring about the type of success and change that we want.
And keep doing it. I don't care, but I think that Twitter. I mean, we're gonna just if we get into Twitter, we're just gonna go off. But I think Twitter can be a bit of a brain suck and an emotion suck for these things, and can be a substitute sometimes for real relationships. So, still answering this question, is that you should try to find and try to embrace healthy online communities. Yeah. So I think not to just like toot our own horn, but I think sort of there's a bit of a poor connection. Hopefully they'll even out. But things like small Discord communities, things like Slacks, stuff like that, where it's the communities where you are with people that you are not trying to necessarily just impress all the time, that everyone's not fighting all the time, that everyone is just like relaxed and like comfortable and like can actually like be vulnerable with each other, which I think is a big thing that you can't really do on Twitter, or it's very hard to do on Twitter without getting sucked into sort of the negative parts.
Because everything's public. Like the nice thing about Alberta Advantage has a Discord that's grown and is a really nice community that's growing. It's new, but it's growing, and everyone has been great. It's also kind of self-selected, so it's a great place if you need help or have questions or just want to, ask, hey, I need a recommendation for a movie tonight.
But it doesn't have to be us. Yeah.
But that can be done by anyone, and not only can it be done by like Left Podcasts, it can be done by you out there in the world and your apartment or whatever.
Yeah, or even just like people you know. But yeah, Matt, do you have any other questions for us? We're not looking at the chat, unfortunately. So.
Oh yeah, no worries. So there's many. We'll keep it going. So I guess one of the things then is So we had Samir Boulay talk about defunding the police and how it was so important. And one of the things that he's prioritized as next steps was even getting involved with in your neighborhood, just being a good neighbor, doing the normal things in the normal neighborhoods, because that's where, if you don't have a problem with the police, you have the most power. You are the most wealthy. You have the most privilege. Can you maybe expand a little bit on how normal quest can go on to lead to real revolutionary change? I know you touched on it briefly, but just can you help us imagine how it grows?
Okay, so I'm going to give you. So the question is like, let's imagine how normal quest can lead to real revolutionary change. But like the first part of that was also tying into Black Lives Matter and like how with defund the police stuff, one of the prior protesters was talking about how a part of doing that is like connecting with your neighbors. So I think it's like also like a community safety thing. So actually, I have a bit of an anecdote about that. So we had next door neighbors who, as they were moving out, got into a bit of a fight. Not a bit of a fight. It was actually quite the fight. But we were going out because we kind of knew them because we had like talked to them before. As we were going out to like go check on them because we were like, well, we don't want to call the police, obviously, but like we don't want to just leave it because it could actually be bad. So we're just going to go like knock on their door. On our way out, we ran to our downstairs neighbor who revealed that she had already called the police. So we realized that our failure there wasn't even necessarily not connecting to our next door neighbors, but maybe you should have done a better job connecting to our downstairs neighbor and letting her know that that wasn't something that you should do. But yeah, that was one of those moments where it's like if you actually, or even if our downstairs neighbor had been more connected with our next door neighbors, maybe she wouldn't have had her first instinct be call the police. Thankfully, everything was fine. No one got hurt. It was all okay. This is like a suburban Calgarian neighborhood, and they were not people of color, so it was thankfully not like a dangerous situation, but it could have been. And I think building those relationships allows you to be like, I am going to actually deal with this myself, or try to like deal with this in a way that doesn't
in a safe way, obviously.
In a safe way, obviously, yes. Like I mean, don't put yourself in danger, but like you can at least like learn ways to intervene or keep people safe without drawing in like fascist state resources to deal with it for you. But in a broader sense about how we can actually affect change by doing this, it's really just down to the more people that you can organize, the more effective anything you do is going to be.
Yeah, I would probably like say quite seriously that one of the reasons the left has been unsuccessful has been this exact thing, and that we probably will never be able to accomplish any of the goals that we want to accomplish that anyone's talked about on this Twitch stream for the past couple of days, unless we actually increase the base of people who are willing to listen and take seriously the ideas that we put forward. One of the biggest stumbling blocks we have is, since the Cold War and even much before that, we have had basically all of the most powerful forces in the world rallied against making our ideas seem untenable, radical, unsuccessful, dangerous, whatever word you want to use. And we are fighting a huge uphill battle. But I think some people on the left have taken a position of like, well, screw the people who don't agree with us. We'll get this change done on our own. And, being totally serious, I just don't think that's going to be successful. We just need people. If we want to be a politics of democracy, but of mass democracy and people acting with one another to change the world that they live in, you need a lot of people to make that happen. It's not going to happen if 10 folks get together and stand outside City Hall. That's not going to be enough.
Yeah, and we're not going to bring people in just by like
posting memes. And
stuff. And just like going up to them and saying, "Hey, are you going to do this?"
Yeah,
without them knowing you.
Why don't you agree with my socialist politics already, you fool?
It does seem like it's a lot of work, but it is just also like a numbers game. Where like imagine there's like like whatever, like 40,000 like committed leftists in like Canada. If like each one of them brought in one more person, now it's 80,000. If each of them brings in two more people, now it's
do some math. 20.
Yeah, so it's even if you only bring in a couple other people into this like cause or into this sort of like social organization or Milo, then if we all do that, then we're off to the races.
And it doesn't have to be like, what we're not advocating for is we don't need you to turn every one of your neighbors into like someone who's going to be going to your Marxist reading group. What we want to do is bring all of our neighbors into a position where they're sympathetic enough to hear us out and in a time when we may really need their support,
Yes.
that they will be there for us. So
Yes.
maybe that is, again, like organizing a tenant union, or in the workplace, it might be like, hey, we're
Workplace
doing
is the
a
most
union
obvious one.
drive,
It's going on strike,
and we want
Yeah.
you to like sign this card and join the union. And can you please sit down with me for 10 minutes and listen? That's what we need them to be there for. They don't have to be socialists. They don't have to read Capital. We just need them to be willing to listen to us and be sympathetic, and then be there when we really need them.
And the best way for someone to listen to you is to get them to like you and respect you.
Yeah.
So any more questions?
Yeah, this is absolutely amazing. I think, not to like get too heavy into theory, but like one of the things that I'm always inspired by is that you can only bring about qualitative change through quantitative effort. And when you look at something as simple as like changing the state of water, it starts at a certain state, but you increase like the heat of the molecules and then it evaporates, or you freeze them and then it freezes. So you need that quantitative to make a change. And if we want a revolution, we need the quantity there. So I think this might be one of the most inspiring and exciting ideas. I'm wondering, though, if we're looking specifically for next steps, someone watching this and they're passionate, they're engaged, are we jumping to Discord? What are the tools that will help get us there?
Okay, so specific next steps. So I would say that the specific next steps for people who are watching this that want to try to take this seriously or be more connected in your communities is to first just try to identify the points in your life where you feel like you're kind of checked out, that you could sort of, like I say, check back in. So like, let's say maybe you don't know your neighbors. That's an obvious one. You don't know anyone in your building. Those are pretty obvious ones. Let's say you realize you don't really know anyone at your workplace. Like you work at, I know when like I worked at like crummy restaurant jobs, I would like always only know like 2 people and then just kind of like be antisocial. But that's not good. That's no way to like be an organizer if you want to actually make change in your workplace. So I think the next steps are sitting down and trying to identify areas in your life where you can actually try to build new relationships in your community. So, for example, if you're religious and you go to church, maybe start talking to more people in your church. If you are a part of some sort of like nonprofit or community organization, maybe like start becoming more invested in that.
Honestly, as strange as it sounds, if you are a gamer and you have a community of people that you play with, like a lot of the people we play with are kind of on our side already, but that's not true for everyone. That's a great time where you're playing Warzone, and as you're dropping in your parachute, you can talk, shoot the shit about politics. But in addition to that, like if you have groups of friends or family in your life that you spend a lot of time with, and you've been,
or ones you don't spend a lot of time
or ones you don't spend a time with, more importantly,
and aren't like ostracized due to like intense like
arguments,
but maybe they're just like people you're not really connecting with. And
I mean,
you don't mind, but you just don't really have
the most obvious places, like Sean said, would be, I would think, community, physical community, and then workplace. And maybe start small there. Ones. And like I think honestly a great goal to set would be, hey, if I work with 10 people and I only really interact with 2, try doubling that. If I live in an apartment complex with 10 units and I only know the names of 1, try to double that. Like just start small.
So we have some like initial starting quests for normal quests, and we'll be, I think we could probably get around to posting them like sometime this week. So after this, we'll be posting some like first steps, but really just like start trying to open yourself up a bit more. I think a big part of it is trying to allow for the opportunities for these connections and relationships to happen. So I do things like I try to take walks without my headphones, or at the very least, when I see someone approaching, I take them off
that's the
so that I can try to have a conversation with them.
And that also signals to people that you're willing to talk.
Because look, I love listening to my pods and my cats.
Oh my God. Don't get me started.
Don't get me started on my podcast. But you also got to be able to put away your pods and listen to your neighbors.
Listen to the podcast of your own neighbors' voices.
Yes, exactly.
That's beautiful. We're going to get close to the wrap up here, but I wanted to ask, we had a few kind of comments of solidarity of the anxiety. I think once you've done it a few times, maybe it's easy. But for the first time you're doing these things, how do you hype yourself up?
So I think it's how do you hype yourself up if you're feeling anxious. So I think the key is actually to hype yourself down. So I think the biggest thing to remember is to just like remember the sort of empathetic situation that you're in, and that like you are dealing with another person. You're not dealing with like a Bethesda game NPC that's going to run at you with.
Well, you might be, but
like you're dealing with a person who probably wants this interaction to be just as pleasant and normal and non-shitty as you do. So I think a part of it is trusting other people.
Yeah.
Obviously, that can really bite you in the ass because like some people can really suck. But I've had jobs where I've had to door knock, door to door, trying to get people to sign up to like Amnesty International subscriptions. Terrible. And like, while a lot of people are just kind of borderline awful, most people are just polite. It's like the 1 in 100 that is actually going to be cruddy. And the worst thing they'll do is just be nasty and you never talk to them again.
And then you write them off. I think a couple things. Like, number one, the reason we kind of framed this whole normal quest in this way is early on, the stakes are so low.
Take it so small.
Like, so low. We're not even asking you to, don't even think about politics in your mind when you're starting to have these interactions. Literally just think of like, I would like to say hi to my neighbors because that is nice. And the second part of that, which is great, is this is one of the rare things where, yes, you are expending some energy to do this and it's scary to do, but it feels very good when you do it.
Yeah.
You will actually get beneficial rewards to your own mental health. And not only that, you may make friends, neighbors that are going to be able to help you out, especially if you're someone who struggles with anxiety or other issues. You may be making friends that will help alleviate that, or that can help you out if you're having a really bad day and you can't go out for some reason and you really need something. Maybe your neighbor is now a friend who you can rely on.
Especially if you live in an apartment building or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's really useful to be able to like just like have friends. But yeah, the anxiety part of it is tough. Yeah. But like, I think the big part is to start slow, to not hype yourself up, but in fact hype yourself down. To remember it's low stakes. The other person is probably normal and like is going to just like want to have a nice normal conversation with you. And like and again, that like your goal is not to try to convince them of anything yet. That's very far in the future. You just want to have like you just want to try to start caring about other people. And so I think that's like the big part. Is like I think a big part of framing it that makes it less anxiety inducing is just like try to just take a genuine interest in like what the people around you are like and what they do. Like, what is your neighbor like? Like, why are they out like watering their lawn at 5 in the morning? That seems like maybe they have a really weird schedule. Get to know them a bit. So like, if you have a neighbor with a cute dog, like,
why is my neighbor digging very big holes at 1 in the morning and throwing things into it and covering it up?
Yeah, that's another advantage. You might be able to solve a crime if you do this. So I think the big parts are taking it slow and it's just trying to start in the areas of your life that you're most comfortable with and then working up from there. Like, don't plunge yourself into the deep end. And don't like overextend yourself and like make this like a bigger issue than it is. Like, we're really just asking people to like try to like start thinking of ways, and like we're going to like gently push people too to like start like opening themselves up to other people a bit more. But I think, to me at least, reframing it as like a situation where you are just trying to be interested in people and caring is like really nice. Mm-hmm. Like, people like that.
Yeah.
People like having other people be interested in caring in them. It feels nice. So they'll probably be quite happy about it.
Yeah.
Excellent. If it's possible to fall in love with an idea, I am certainly seduced here. Good God. I think we've got 1 minute and 30 seconds left. How would you like to wrap up?
I guess we'll wrap up by just saying, as just a pitch for voting for us, to just give you like the short pitch. Like, I love all the ideas that are presented, but we feel like ours is a really good first step in trying to build a larger, broad base for our ideas that we can try to act on to make these other steps happen.
Yeah.
And also, we feel like this sort of leveraging things like the Canada Left subreddit, or maybe making it a bespoke normal quest subreddit, or doing this within these pre-existing communities where we can support each other and build each other up, is also a really big part of it.
I'm really passionate about this. I've for a long time found myself needing to consciously unplug from various types of social media and other ways of interacting that have, for me, mentally been draining, have been very negative at times, and actively, I think, kept me away from doing some of these really base things. And so I've been really on this, just my own personal life, for a long time. And like I said, I still find it hard, but I have, just in the short time I've been focusing on it, I basically went off Twitter more or less about 6 months ago. And in that time, trying to actively say hi to people, like the basic things we've been talking about, has had a huge impact. And I feel so much better about, I think, the world, just frankly, as shitty as the world is right now, when you start meeting people that you don't already know and realize that inherently most people are nice, down-to-earth people who care about themselves and their families and their friends, it, I think, brings a lot of hope into your own life that we can actually win this thing in the long run. So I think it's a really important place to start. And like Sean said, I think a lot of the other things that we want to accomplish, we can't do unless we get this done first.
All right, I think that's it.
I think you've inceptioned all the other ideas. The idea to empower all the other ideas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's. I was just supply chain logic. I just got to undercut everyone else.
I feel like Christian Amanpour. I'm like getting everything on like a 10-second delay.
Well, I do thank you for your time. It was iconic and legendary as always.
Thanks for having us. This was really, really awesome.
Really fun. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend.
Yeah, see you.
Take care.
See you, everyone.
Bye-bye. Okay, thank you so much. That was amazing. Alberta Advantage, you have to check out their podcast. They're absolutely incredible in every conceivable way. You have to check out the Discord, also an absolutely beautiful thing. And then they have a newsletter on top of that, which is one of my favorite things to read in the world. I don't really enjoy reading. This newsletter makes it worth it. So definitely check them out in every media available to you.